welcome to Read This Next from the Thunder Bay Public Library. This week it is myself, Laura, and I am joined by a special guest, Patience. And Patience is here with us today. Nicole's not available, so we decided we'd bring in someone who is also a big fantasy fan and has specifically been talking about portal fantasies with me recently. And there's a couple where our recommendations and our reads overlap. So it'll be fun to share those with you. So a portal fantasy, just to kind of define it, it's a fantasy story where it begins in our everyday world, and then someone goes through an entryway, a door, you know, they fall through a hole in the ground in Alice in Wonderland, they go through a wardrobe in the Narnia books, some sort of portal, and then they end up in the fantasy world. And sometimes, you know, at the end of the book, they return to their world, right? That's what happens with Alice in Wonderland, and that's what happens in Narnia. And then in other books, maybe they don't come back because they decide things are better there. Maybe they come back and then they leave and go to the world again in a second book in the series. Different ways to do it, but basically the main thing that makes a portal fantasy is starts in one world, goes through a portal of some kind and into another. That's how you get a portal fantasy. Okay, what's your first one, Patience?
So I have Havenfall. Havenfall is by Sarah Holland. A safe haven between four realms and the girl sworn to protect it at any cost. Classic.
Classic.
Hidden deep in the mountains of Colorado lies the Inn of Havenfall, right? A sanctuary that connects ancient worlds, each with its own magic. For generations, the inn has protected all who seek refuge within its walls. Anyone who disrupts the peace can never return. For Maddie Marrow, summers in the inn are more than a chance to experience this magic firsthand. Havenfall is an escape from reality where her mother sits on death row accused of murdering Maddie's brother. Ooh, that got dark.
That's dark. That's very dark.
Just, you know.
That's very dark.
Just your average family problems.
Okay, all right, death row.
It's where Maddie fell in love with the handsome Floridian?
No, that's if you're from Florida. This is presumably a fantasy land. So probably not a Floridian. Anyway, she fell in love
with a soldier. His name is Brecken. They always have strange names. Why can no one have like
okay, but
like
it's
a
weird.
regular?
It's weird when they don't too. There was this one book and they all had like fancy names, but then their nicknames were super normal, like Lou or whatever. And we were like, this doesn't feel right either.
There's gotta be an in between somewhere.
It had to be. Anyway, I keep interrupting. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good. And it's where one day she hopes to inherit the role of innkeeper from her beloved uncle. But this summer, the impossible happens. A dead body is found, shattering everything the inn stands for. With Brecken missing, her uncle gravely injured, and a dangerous creature on the loose, Maddie suddenly finds herself responsible for the safety of everyone in Havenfall. She'll do anything to uncover the truth, even if it means working together with an alluring new staffer. Alluring,
yeah.
Taya, who seems to know more than she's letting on. As the dark secrets are revealed about the inn itself, one thing becomes clear to Maddie. No one can be trusted. No one is safe.
Wow, there's a lot going on there. I feel
there's
like
a lot.
There's perhaps a little squint of a love triangle, maybe.
It does seem like that.
With an alluring new staff member.
Yeah.
She has to work with, you know.
Those casual alluring staff members.
Alluring staff. I can say, I mean, you know, not to insult anyone I've ever worked with, but I don't know if I've ever met someone at work and been like, you know what? They're alluring.
I hope people think that about me. They're just like, wow, Patience is very alluring today. Not every day. It sounds exhausting, but like on a Wednesday.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a very exciting place to work. Lots going on. Again, it's funny because the description that, like, you know, what was it? Nobody can hurt each other in the hotel?
Yeah, there's supposed to be like
a truce. It's supposed to be like a truce. That made me think of the hotel in John Wick. Which is a bit of a
Yeah.
stretch of a comparison in some ways, because if you're not familiar, that is like a hyper violent action movie, but it's the same thing. There's a hotel and anyone can go there. And then, you know, if you're violent, if you're like, I'm taking a break and so is that gangster, and I'm going to take this opportunity to take him out, and it's like, well, then you're banned forevermore, because that's not what
Yep.
this hotel is for. The same thing this inn.
Yeah.
Sounds interesting.
It's a great place full of her mother. I can't believe, like, there's so much going on.
There's, yes, clearly there is something tied in there. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I'd be curious to know if the mother is the uncle's sister, or if the mother like married into this weird magic family.
Ooh, good question.
Right? Maybe she married in and now she's being like thrown under the bus for something.
And then how did her uncle get this job too? Like, does
Also
he
good
have
point.
magic? Is he just like a guy that was like, you know what? I'm gonna build a hotel and see what happens.
It's like, oh, see, now I'm making another silly connection. Now I'm thinking of like Hotel Transylvania. Anyway, okay, so there's a lot
John
going on
Wick
in that
and Hotel Transylvania squished together, the perfect book.
It's the perfect book. Okay, so lots going on in that one. Lots to check out. This next one, totally different, sort of different vibe. This book is called The City of Brass. It's book one in a trilogy, and it's by S.A. Chakrabarty. And not totally different, because once again, there's magic in a portal, because all of these are portal fantasies. But okay, so I'll let you know what the vibe is. It is different. Nari has never believed in magic. Certainly, she has power. On the streets of 18th century Cairo. So this is what I'm saying. Very different location. She's a con woman of unsurpassed talent, but she knows better than anyone that the trade she uses to get by, palm readings, SARS, healings, are all tricks, sleights of hand, learned skills, a means to the delightful end of swindling Ottoman nobles. Delightful. But when Nari accidentally summons an equally sly, darkly mysterious Jinn warrior to her side during one of her cons, she's forced to accept that the magical world she thought only existed in childhood stories is real. For the warrior tells her a new tale across hot, windswept sands teeming with creatures of fire and rivers where the mythical Merid sleep, past ruins of once magnificent human metropolises.
Ooh.
That's quite the phrase.
Yeah.
And mountains where the circling hawks are not what they seem, lies Deviabad, the legendary city of brass, a city to which Nari is irrevocably bound. In that city, behind gilded brass walls laced with enchantments, behind the 6 gates of the 6 Jinn tribes, old resentments are simmering. Is complicated. Complicated geography. Okay, and when Nari decides to enter this world, she learns that true power is fierce and brutal, that magic cannot shield her from the dangerous web of court politics, and even the cleverest of schemes can have deadly consequences. After all, there is a reason they say, be careful what you wish for.
Ooh.
So we've moved from like in Havenfall and even in other lands basically seem like contemporary versions of our world. And then now we've jumped way back, 18th century, Cairo, totally different fantasy background, right? We've got jinns, we're not dealing with mermaids, totally different. And yeah, it seems like there's a lot of layers.
And jinns are kind of like genies?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Seems like there's a lot going on in there. I have a sneaking suspicion that her skills of trickery and theft are going to come in handy in the palace, despite not having any true magic. Just guessing.
I mean, it's great that she can use those skills, right? Like, you're just like,
yeah, some way that's going to be useful. I bet. Okay, this next one that Patience is going to share, funnily enough, we didn't plan it, but we are both currently reading this book.
yeah.
So you tell them about it.
Okay, so this book is called The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex Haro.
Alex Fancy with an I instead of an E.
It is very fancy. And the cover of the book is also fancy. It has like a doorknob. It does, when I say it like that, it's not very fancy, but it has like a doorknob and it's got like flowers and keys. I don't know. It's very pretty in my
Very
opinion.
pretty. I'm going to do my best to do what Nicole does and put the book covers up for people to see. If I don't figure that out, my apologies. Now you'll be able to see it in the show notes.
Okay, ready? Let's set the scene.
Set the scene.
In the early 1900s, a young woman embarks on a fantastical journey of self-discovery after finding a mysterious book in a captivating lyrical debut. In the sprawling mansion filled with particular treasures, January Scholar is curious herself. As the ward of the wealthy Mr. Locke, she feels a little different from the artifacts that decorates the halls, carefully maintained, largely ignored, and utterly out of place. Then she finds a strange book, a book that carries a scent of other worlds and tells the tale of secret doors, of love, adventure, and danger. Each page reveals impossible truths about the world that January discovers, a story increasingly intertwined with her own. Lush and richly imagined, a tale of impossible journeys, unforgettable loves, and enduring power of stories waits in Alex E. Holt's spellbinding debut. Step inside and discover its magic.
Yeah. You know what? Frankly, I feel like that's not a really great description.
It's not.
It's a little dry.
It's very dry, especially.
It's more exciting, I think.
It is because, yeah, it's hard to. I'm trying to think of a bit.
I know we don't want to spoil it.
Yeah.
But we're also both not very far into it. Like I think
yes.
we're probably in like the first, like maybe 3 chapters or something.
Yeah.
Like, so we're not that deep into it. But I will say, the character reminds me a little bit of Sarah Crewe from The Secret Garden. And that book is actually called out at one point in this as the like kind of out of place, you know, like sort of cranky little creepy little monster. But I always say like it's important to be spunky because that's how you not get pushed around.
Yeah.
You know? And it does an interesting thing where we have parallel stories. Well, I guess a story within a story would be the best way to say it, right? Because she's reading a book and then within that book we're following a like totally different character and their adventures. And everything's going to connect up, you know it. So yeah, it's a good time so far.
It's a pure like adventure book so far, like as I've gone like, and it's very like 1800, like it's just you almost feel like you're there, like you can get like the smell,
very
the aura.
It is very descriptive. Yeah, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
It's all good.
Very descriptive. And it is, considering that most of what we've read, a lot of it has all been in like the real world so far. You know, this author does a very good job. There's interesting things happening with this author is also paying a lot of attention to concepts of like colonialism and all that was going on at the time, and then how there was many societies of like explorers or adventurers, and they would basically go and take like items from other people's cultures that had all sorts of significance, cultural, religious. They didn't know, they didn't care. They're just like, oh, it's pretty, I'm going to bring it home and put it in a museum, or just put it in my sitting room because I'm rich and that's what I feel like doing. And so this author is interrogating that as well, that sort of like plundering. That's I mean, that's not even getting into like portals into actual fictional worlds, right? This is just the way they're stepping into places they don't belong and taking whatever they want. I think it's gonna just keep getting more interesting.
Yeah, well, and it talks about a lot of like, because January is a young lady and how young ladies are treated at the time and expected of her just to sit pretty and that's it.
That's it.
Sit there quietly.
Yeah. And the sort of like the frustrations she feels. It's good. It's what we're saying. It's good. Some of them we've been saying, some of the titles we've mentioned have been YA. This one is not. It starts when she is young. She's like 7 or 8 in the very beginning. But then fairly quickly moves to her being like a young a young woman, basically. So this one is an adult title. Yeah, good book so far, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm excited. I have the audiobook version and like the real book, so I just like do both.
Oh, you're jumping back and forth.
Yeah.
I'm reading it through Cloud Library.
Ooh.
We have one more highlight, and then we'll do our personal recs.
Yes. So this book is called The Thinking Woman's Guide to Real Magic. And Laura, this one is also an adult book.
It is, yes.
By Emily Crow Baker. Okay, ready? I always have to get like prepared to do my description reading.
Fair enough.
I feel like I'm like a movie reader.
That's what I do too, right? And
right?
I know I say certain like phrases and stuff always the same. Anyway.
I get earning comparisons to wildly popular fantasy novels by Deborah Hawkins and Lev Goldsman and Emily Coy Baker's enchanting debut offers an intelligent escape into a richly imagined world. And with an appealing female protagonist, cinematic storytelling, witty humor, and wonderfully clever literary references. Oh my goodness, who wrote this?
Some of them get real tongue twistery.
The Thinking Woman's Guide to Real Magic is sure to capture the imagination of readers everywhere. During a miserable weekend at a friend's wedding, eager to forget about her disastrous breakup and stalled dissertation, Nora Fisher wanders off and somehow finds herself in another realm. Ugh, that's kind of the dream, to be honest. I'd love to just like go into the woods and come back, like go to Wonderland or something. There she meets a glamorous Alyssa? There's no A. Glamorous Liza?
She's a glamorous Alyssa. Ilyssa. Glamorous Ilyssa.
A glamorous Alyssa, who introduces Nora to a decadent new world and her gorgeous son, Recklin. Again, with these names, I just can't read names.
Well, they made them up themselves, you know. You can say it however you want to say it.
Recklin. His name is Recklin now. But when the elegant veer of this dreamland shatters, Nora finds herself in a fairy tale gone incredibly wrong. And the only way she can survive is by learning real magic herself. It sounds great. Yeah. I would love to learn real magic, especially when the remote's really far away and I don't want to get it.
This book, I believe there's 2 out in it. And it's fun because it starts out kind of sounding like your average sort of chick lit, like fluffy, and then it's like magic. We're in a fantasy land. Well, hello. Yeah, certainly takes a turn. So that's another one you can check out.
Yeah.
All right. So these are our personal recommendations now. And this first one is a book a series that we have both read and that we both really enjoyed.
Yeah, because there's like 9 books or something.
I know there's tons. Like another one just came out, I think.
And there's one coming out in January.
Goodness. This
I'm
author
very excited.
is very prolific. Like she writes tons of stuff.
Yeah.
Under like multiple names and everything. But
so
it's this series. It's called The Wayward Children. And the first book in the series is called Every Heart a Doorway. And it won like a whack of awards, a Hugo, Nebula, Locus, Alex Awards, nominated for awards, all this stuff. And also just delightful. So here's the description. Eleanor West's home for wayward children. No solicitations, no visitors, no quests. Children have always disappeared under the right conditions, slipping through the shadows under a bed or at the back of a wardrobe, tumbling down rabbit holes and into old wells and emerging somewhere else. But magical lands have little need for used up miracle children. Nancy tumbled once, but now she's back. The things she's experienced, they change a person. The children under Miss West's care understand that all too well, and each of them is seeking a way back to their own fantasy world. But Nancy's arrival marks a change at the home. There's a darkness just around each corner, and when tragedy strikes, it's up to Nancy and her newfound schoolmates to get to the heart of things, no matter the cost. So basically, it's like this is where Alice from Alice in Wonderland and Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz, and those
Wendy.
Wendy, exactly, those Pevensey kids from the Narnia books, all of them would be like, you won't stop talking about this imaginary weird world you went to. It's strange. We're going to send you to this special school with a bunch of other weirdo kids. You can all talk to each other about how weird they are. And it's so interesting and good, and the world building is so great.
It is amazing. Every time I read her books, I feel like I'm like there, like I feel like connected to these new worlds, and they're just so neat.
It's so good. She does, well, there's lots of really interesting things, but I remember being really struck by that sort of like taxonomy of different kinds of worlds. Like, oh, you went to a nonsense world, and you went to a logic world, and you went to like different kinds of like trying to classify different kinds of magical worlds you'd fall into. So interesting.
It's a lot of thought put into it, and it's really, and it's cool because the school is for children who've all been to different magical worlds that suited them. Maybe not perfectly. I guess some words don't always fit the child perfectly, but now they're not necessarily children. They're a little bit older, and they either come back at the same age they were at the same time, or time has passed, and it's always different depending on how they got back. And it's, but they're in a place now that all those children are there, so they all have the same similar story, that they found a door or a puddle or something. And it's just really neat because it makes you kind of start looking around for like your own doorway. It's about time.
And the other thing that's interesting, like there's many reasons it's interesting, but that I enjoyed it, is it also is this one, it's also like there's a mystery. And it is not, I would say it's not for young children. There is some horror, I would say, probably goes so far as to say there is some horror certainly in these books, because not all fantasy worlds are light and cheerful, right? Like there's a lot of dark sides to fantasy,
and that's kind of something they talk about in the book, like the books too, is that not every world is gumdrops, rainbows, and fairies. Sometimes the fairies won't eat your face.
Sometimes they do. This is not as uncommon as it was when this book first came out, because this book came out a while ago now. But at the time, it was one of the first kind of mainstream books that had an asexual main character. So if that's something you're interested in seeing represented in your reading, that's something that isn't here. And the multiple books, they cover the same, like they all end up tying back to the same home, but they focus on different groups of characters. So you're not like following just one person through the whole thing. You kind of get bits of pieces from everybody. Just really great. Recommend it.
Well, and it's I'm going to butt in for now. Now it's my turn. I have one of the books with me. Some of them too, it's not just she covers all sorts of sexualities and genders, and I believe she has someone who's transgender in one of them, and she has one that is she has like all sorts of different people, and it's really neat to see it, and it's all like just accepted. It's just really cool.
Yeah, they're great books, basically. And they have very great titles, and they look beautiful. I asked my mother for the first 4 for Christmas or something. I've got a bunch on the shelf, and I'm going to continue to collect because they are great. Patience, do you want to share your rec?
I do. Okay, so I'm super excited about this one. I'm just gonna. I should read it before I give away anything. Okay, so it's called The Holo Places, and this is an adult book. It is horror, so just in case people aren't a little squeamish or uncomfortable with that, just keep in mind. It's by T. Kingfisher, and she's actually cool because she actually writes children's books. And she writes, now I can't remember her children's author's name. I'll have to put that back in here.
Multifaceted is what you're saying.
She is, but she was worried that people would mix up her adult books and her children's books and give her adult books to the kids. So she did 2 different names, so no one wouldn't make that mistake.
I get that.
Yeah. So this is just a one-off, and it's so much fun. A young woman discovers a strange portal in her uncle's house, leading to madness, terror, and this gripping new novel. Pray they are hungry. Kara finds these words in the mysterious bunker that she discovered behind a hole in the wall of her uncle's house. Freshly divorced and living back at home, Kara now becomes obsessed with these cryptic words and starts exploring the particular bunker, only to discover that it holds portals to countless alternate realities. But these places are haunted by creatures that seem to hear thoughts. And the more you fear them, the stronger they become. So it sounds kind of exciting, but so it's super good. So Kara, or Carrot, later in the book, she's called Carrot. She's working at her uncle's kind of oddity, like mystery house. And most of it's fake, and she kind of like makes fun of it, but she's divorced and she's just looking for something to do. And then one day she finds a hole in the wall and it leads to a bunker, but the bunker shouldn't be there because it should be leading to the outside. There's no building next to it.
Yeah.
And so her and her cool neighbor goes and investigates it, and they kind of find this world, and it's horrifying.
Is the cool neighbor cute?
He's quirky. Yeah, he's not. I wouldn't say cute. Like, he's cute in a way, but he's more quirky.
Okay. They're not setting anything up there, is what you're saying.
No, he's just
Okay.
like the gay best friend. He's
Gotcha.
wonderful and he's very funny.
Okay.
But yeah, no romance. It's just like two friends
That's
trying
really
to
cute.
survive,
Sure.
and they end up going to this, like, they call it the Holo Place, and it's awful. And there's this being that's trying to, but you can't see it very well. It's kind of invisible, and it talks about how, like, this other world, an alternate reality, and how it kind of makes you think that it could exist here, is kind of it. It's really neat. But they're kind of in this world and they're trying to get out because it's not fun there.
Sure.
But it's, not all magical worlds are great. We've talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it. And it's super fun. I really like it. It's a good horror book for Halloween. Oh.
Yes, it is almost spooky season.
Yeah.
Upcoming, there'll be many spooky season episodes. You can get started with this one.
Mm-hmm. It's great. It's very much a thriller. Like, I was like, could not even like I work at the library, and I was just like, I gotta just read. Like, I can't. don't ask me to work. I just gotta read, because it was really good. It was very like fast paced, and you're just like, what does that mean? And then you're just like, and the ending is really good too. Like, sometimes you read, like, especially I find some Portal books, like, it ends with like just like wah, wah. It was just a dream, and you're like,
right, yeah,
what?
Yeah.
This isn't like that, and they're just kind of like, I think I need therapy. Like, it's really good.
That would be an amazing ending.
No spoilers, but
but yeah, okay, yeah. So that's our Portal fantasy list of titles. As always, if you missed a title or the author's name, all of that information will be available on the show notes, which you can find by going to tbplofftheshelf.com, and you'll find all that info there. We are asked that you please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast or to the videos if you're watching us on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Yay, we
Yay,
did
we
it.
did it.